You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 7, Episode 290.
Human hot dog meat, woman in white, mass yoga murder, and dog fox.
Yes.
Sure.
I just figured I'd throw that in there at the last minute. So anyway, I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And this is CreepGeeks Podcast, and we're going to talk about all sorts of weird stuff that we find on the internet and through our own experiences, although I don't think we've hopefully not experienced human hot dog meat, but if that be the case, then so be it.
Oh, yuck.
It's kind of disturbing. We'll talk about that and some other things, and we do appreciate you taking time to listen, and if this is your very first time tuning in, welcome. We accept only the finest quality 4 to 5 star reviews wherever you're listening to your podcast. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it is what it is. We'd like to say hello to our patrons. Hello, patrons. We have some stuff that we're going to talk about. What? You keep looking at me like I'm a weirdo.
No.
I keep thinking about our delicious dinner.
Yes.
Because when we do the podcast, a lot of times we make a nice dinner. And then we do the podcast, and then we eat that nice dinner. A lot of times we record a podcast on Sundays, and today is one of those days.
Yes.
And our delicious podcast dinner is?
Chicken and cabbage stew.
Very nice.
Yes.
Smells amazeballs. All right, so anyway, there's a couple different things that we're going to talk about. One of the things that we're going to talk about is a continuation of something we've been talking about. And then what it is a contribution.
Okay.
And our buddy Dave makes a long drive, and he recorded a series of things.
Okay.
I don't want to call them talks, just some things that he remembered that he wanted to talk about, and he threw them out there. And he called our number because we have a phone number that you can call and leave a message.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yes. And so I recorded all of what he said and broke it up a little bit so we could play it because he has a long, dusty drive. And we called it originally Dave's Dusty Drive, and I realized that was stupid, so we just called it Dave's Drive.
I didn't think it was stupid.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, it's just one of those things, I guess. Okay. So we have that to talk about, and we're going to play that, and so it's going to be kind of nice. And then we're going to get into some news because we are CreepGeeks Paranormal and Weird News. We're going to talk about human hot dogs and fox dog hybrids, and there's a couple different things we should probably go ahead and add to the list of things we all need to worry about, right?
Yeah.
Possible Loch Ness Monster sightings. And we have a little segment we're going to call It's on Reddit, so it's real.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, these are pretty compelling. That's why I put them in there. Mm-hmm. And then some things that we've noticed, and we're going to go ahead and take about an hour of your time, and we do hope you take the time to comment, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever it is you got to do to share on social medias.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. So what do you want to do first? You want to talk about human hot dogs, or you want to go ahead and play Dave? All right, we're going to go ahead and play Dave.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. Hope you enjoy it. And as I scroll through here and try to figure out where I saved it I have all this technology. And usually I look like I know what I'm doing with it. And sometimes I just don't. So anyway, this is a pretty cool little story because we talked about it before. And the big thing that seems to be prevalent is the woman in white. It seems like every culture, every place has a woman in white type thing.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting that regionally there are all these very distinct things that make her unique for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, even here where we are in basically Western North Carolina, if you go down get past South Carolina into Florida and Georgia, there's a woman in white there. It's a woman in white in Texas, is everywhere. In New Mexico for sure.
In New Mexico, she's more ambulatory. You can actually find her on the side of the road or near waterways. And in Appalachia, it seems like she's more of a lurking monster. You go someplace.
Depends on the story, I guess.
Yeah. But regardless, it's a persistent myth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was going to say, man, it went right out of my head. Is it Colombia? In South America, it's prevalent too. I think
Yeah.
it was Colombia. We actually, in one of our podcast episodes, since we have 290 so far, we played some screaming from an alleged woman in white. Kind of like Llorona.
Yeah. Argentina?
I don't know.
Okay.
Somebody will correct us.
Are you familiar with women in white?
Anyway, here we go.
My Uncle Gerald used to live alone in southwestern Colorado. He owned a large piece of property and had a double wide trailer on it. When he was a younger man, he lived alone with his dog. And living in the middle of nowhere, southwestern Colorado, a lot of that is old land, where things still went bump in the night, right? Where many people slept with a shotgun next to their door side of the bed because you never know who would come calling at night. Now, in the late 60s, early 70s, as my uncle was living alone, he would often go to bed and leave his dog to sleep outside. His guard dog, right? His hound. Sleep outside on the porch. And he lived a while, set back from the road, a couple miles off the main highway. So it's unusual that you get visitors. But one night, around 2 a.m., he hears a knock, 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 knock on his door. Somebody beating on the door with some urgency, trying to get in. And hearing this, my uncle panics. Rushes to the door. Doesn't even take time to pull pants on. Just rushes to the door. Now, this homie lives, and it took a good 10 seconds to get to the door from the bedroom. And when he opened the door, he saw a beautiful woman standing there in white. She asked if she could use the phone. My uncle panics. Says, sure, is everything okay? Woman says, I had car trouble just off the highway. And I really need to call someone. I need to call someone. And in my uncle's half-awakened haze, he agrees and says, sure. Let me show where the telephone is. Let me go put some pants on. So he goes to put some pants on. Comes back out. In his bedroom and finds the woman gone. After he put the pants on, he returned to his phone and saw the receiver hanging. This was at a time when everyone's phone was mounted in the kitchen. I hope you can remember those times with a very long phone cord. The phone was hanging off its receiver in the kitchen. And my uncle looked through his house looking for the woman. Maybe she went to the bathroom or maybe she's sitting down. Nothing. There were no additional lights on. Nothing had changed. He goes back into his bedroom to look to see if he missed her. Nothing. So he walks to the front of his house, looking to see if the woman had left. He goes to his door and it's still locked. Locked from the inside. Thinking this is odd, he opens the door to look for the woman, and his dog wakes up and comes in. The history of this road is a pretty scattered one. Official reports don't say a whole lot's really happened there, but if you talk to the residents in the area, they talk to you and tell you that the road is very well trafficked. There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of history on that road. On one side of the road, La Posta Road, is my family's cemetery, with generation after generation of my family there. Generation after generation of people buried there. It's hard really to say what happens on a lonely country road at night. But I do believe that people, spirits, still wandered looking to complete whatever they were doing or trying to find the help they never got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. As I'm stretching here. It's kind of weird. I got a little bit of a sinus thing going on, so I've been kind of... My voice sounds weird in my own head.
Actually, you sound better.
Yeah, well...
Yeah.
Better get me a bucket. That's from Monty Python. So, speaking of human hot dog meat.
Oh.
So I came across this and I had to put it in the podcast because at some point in some time, I think that if you've had a hot dog in the past probably 7 years or so, you may have had some some human DNA included in your hot dog.
I mean, to what extent?
Well, I'm going to tell you because there's an article on abcnewsgo.com. I guess so you can get your ad-filled news in a hurry.
Yeah.
Right? And it kind of goes like this. The food that's a staple of American cookouts is getting some scrutiny because of some unexpected ingredients. So there's an independent company that analyzes food at a molecular level called Clear Food, and they found that 14.4% of hot dogs it tested were problematic.
Okay.
So they reported that it found human DNA in 6 of the 345 samples, or 2% of all samples tested. 4 of the 6 samples that tested positive human DNA, and this is if you're a vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah.
Were in the vegetarian products.
So vegetarian hot dogs had human DNA in
Yep.
them. While frightening, that goes back to what percentage of human DNA were in these?
2.
No, I mean...
I want it to be 2. 2%, that's it.
You want it to be.
Yeah. Let's not get crazy with it and start dwelling on it. And, we actually went shopping at Aldi's the other day after our failed medical appointment, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at the hot dogs and decided not to get them because of this. I almost forgot to add this article in there because I collect things that I find to be interesting over time and stick them in our podcast.
Okay, so this article gives all these other statistics, but it doesn't say how much human DNA.
Does it really matter?
It does.
No, I don't know. I don't think it does.
I mean, at what point?
I would like it to be 0. I'd like to be no.
I
I don't mind some of the ingredients that they have in there, like lamb.
Yeah.
And
we would all like it to be
chicken
0,
and beef.
but realistically, I mean, was it because some enthusiastic or possibly weird employee touched all the hot dogs before they went?
Look, you're going down a road that we don't want to dwell on.
Is it because there's a fingernail in there? I mean,
That's disgusting.
What percentage?
Toenail.
And you know what?
Some sneezing.
It does mention that in this article.
Some fecal pooping.
The DNA found in the samples likely came from hair, skin, fingernail, or saliva that was accidentally mixed in during the manufacturing process.
Somebody sneezing in the pink goo that becomes a hot dog.
Oh, God.
That's right.
Or losing a fingernail, which, again,
Look, man, just stop talking, okay? You already know I'm queasy. And let's just work at it. No, I'm about to go eat some delicious chicken and DNA dinner, right? Huh?
Chicken and DNA.
That's right. Genetically modified.
But here's the thing. I kind of feel that we kind of need to know this information.
No,
especially if, according to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, Americans spend $2.4 billion on hot dogs last year alone. So if we eat 20 billion hot dogs and 14 billion sausages each year, we kind of need to know how much.
That's something you can do on your own
How
time.
much people wheat is eaten.
I think that goes beyond the scope of what we want to talk about here in this particular episode of the CreepGeeks Paranormal and Weird News podcast.
The headline brings straight up.
What did I tell you at the beginning of all this? Hey, we're not going to dive too deep into this. And you want to, and I do not.
The headline straight up Upton Sinclair, the jungle, thinking children falling in the manufacturing.
Could be. Could be somebody at work is like, hey, have you seen Frank? Where's Frank? He's supposed to take his break. Where's Frank at?
Yeah.
And they'd never seen Frank again.
That's awful.
That's right. You can get it Frank for Frankfurter. Rolling into a hot dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. What's wrong with people, right? And I'm like, this is funny because this has happened a couple different times. We've included a couple different articles that we've talked about in the past in our podcast about British people doing stupid stuff, right? And it seems to make the news. Everything from drawing snow penises to basically saying that there's some crazy things going on with the trees and it's really nothing but shoes that somebody put there, right? And calling the alarm, sounding the alarm for stuff. And this one I had to put in there. And this news segment. British cops respond to report of mass murder. All right.
Okay.
And this is in somewhere in England.
Mm-hmm.
Turned out to be a yoga class.
Fire that yoga instructor.
No, fire the yoga instructor. No, I think they need to make that person who submitted this
How bad
sensationalistic
is your class
report.
that
No,
the
look.
Passerbys are mistaken.
A bevy of cops swarmed a building in Britain after they received a call from concerned residents who mistook a yoga class, all right, at the site of the scene, basically as the site of a mass murder, right?
Yeah.
So an instructor, right, Millie Laws, was winding down her session at the Seascape Cafe in the community of Chapel St. Leonard's, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last half hour of the class saw her 7 students adopt the corpse pose.
Yeah.
Right. When, you remain perfectly still on the floor, and then, that she walked around and basically in the candlelit room beating a shamanic drum. Okay.
That is very generous.
Okay.
A whole half hour for corpse pose.
Okay. Let's get through it before you criticize it, right? You're already trying to make the person or people that reported it, not idiots, and they're idiots. Okay. So, it's because you're going to be relaxed. It's the corpse pose. I'm just assuming. I mean, I've never done the yoga where I'm in a community of anybody laying around stretching and farting and doing all that stuff because it's just not my bag, man. Plus, I'm not very flexible, literally and figuratively. And so for me to be laying on the floor in a corpse pose with somebody walking around beating a shamanic drum, things are happening. So anyway, I guess this was observed and people started calling. So a couple with some dogs came up to the window and they were having a look in there, but they walked off really quickly and I didn't think anything of it. Around 30 minutes later, after the class left the building, 5 police cars pulled up to the cafe with their sirens blazing. What are they going to do? They don't really have any weapons. They're just going to yell at them, speak to them in a stern voice?
Maybe.
Possibly. So yeah, anyway, they couldn't find any other explanation because, the people are like, oh my gosh, it's a ritualistic murder, right? A massacre. So they couldn't find it. So they couldn't find any explanation for the 7 lifeless bodies on the floor and the instructor walking around in a dimly lit room would appear to be a long robe beating a drum. So yeah, it was a bit surreal and funny. And the law basically expressed sympathy for the shaken couple, even though they mused at some time you've got to see the lighter side of it.
Dumb.
So they walked by and seen something they didn't understand. And what did they do? Same thing they did in the past. It's a witch, right? It's scene of a mass murder. So what is wrong with, it's too many murder podcasts. It's too much of this stuff to instantly go from, oh, there must be a mass murder massacre, right? Instead of like people taking a nap. What did they think was happening?
A very peaceful mass murder. Okay, first off, everybody's lined up. There is one person in what looks like, a robe, probably chanting or saying some sort of inspirational, you did a good job.
They know it's witchcraft.
Today.
They know it's a murder. Right? Yeah. That's what they're saying. Like, oh, let's go.
If it's witchcraft or murder, I'd expect more blood or I'd see the bodies contorted. Even if it was some sort of Jim Jones or poisoning type thing, when you react to the poison, you're going to move around. To see all these people uniformly lined up and just chill in their fancy yoga clothes.
Well, that makes them definitely dead.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah. These people are dumb. This is very dumb. I thought it was kind of funny, though. They just walked away and called the cops. So, the cops are like, oh, here we go. We got something going on. They were excited.
They were.
Come rolling in. There were sirens blazing. I don't know. Maybe we're being a little too hard, but I don't think so because we've had other instances where...
All right. Knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Just so bad.
Yeah, I would hope that they would put their names out there so that all their, other nosy neighbors and community people could make fun of them.
Like how pet stores will have a little taped little sign that says not dead, just resting when it's the turtles or the frogs in the window. She should have that. She should have not dead,
just
paying
yoga.
Customers.
Yeah, not dead, just yoga. I just thought that was kind of funny. I could see it. So And it'd be funny. I don't know. I could just see somebody getting goaded into calling. Dude's probably like, look, man, they're not dead, honey. Yes, they are. You need to call somebody. And then they got to call and have a cop show up. I hope it didn't hang around. Because if you were like, you need to call. If we disagreed and you said they were dead and I said they were not, we would call, but we'd be anonymous.
Yeah.
And that way we wouldn't have to sit around and be wrong. Because who really wants to be right? You know what I mean? I'd rather be right that they're not dead, but I'd be embarrassed that they weren't. And I would hope that you would want to not be right. That means that they are not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, could have been bad. I just think it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Can you imagine making that phone call? Hello? It's a mass murder. So there's a fox dog hybrid now.
I'm very excited.
And I put this in here strictly for you.
Yes.
Because this could explain some things, possibly. Because, every time scientists and naturalists and everybody says, oh, it's not possible, things like this happen. They're happening. This could explain some things, just not this specifically, but in general, people say it looked like this and that.
Yeah.
To try to describe something weird, something, cryptozoological out in the wild, right? Like, let's give an example. Werewolf, otherwise known as
Dogman.
Dogman.
Yeah.
Which, I think it's a North American hyena.
True.
And we were going to do a big podcast on that, and we just never got around to it because there's not a whole lot of information. How do you prove something that's just a guess?
Yeah.
Let's go talk to any paranormal or cryptozoologist or cryptological cryptid investigator. Hey, man, prove this that doesn't exist. Because everything you have is circumstantial, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that, you have a fox and a dog that weren't supposed to be able to get together and create a new thing have.
Yeah. And the examples that are in this article that show like the picture of what are they calling it? Like a dachshund or something like that?
I don't know, but this was in Brazil. It's
a dogxim. So
Dogxim?
Yeah, dog, Dogxim, which is a combination of the word dog and Graxium do Campo, which is a Portuguese name for the pampas fox. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a mix between a dog breed of some sort and the pampas fox.
Yeah.
If you look at the photos, or the first photo that shows it, the caption is the animal was discovered after it was hit by a car and brought to a vet. Well, take into account the dropped tail, the stoop posture, the oversized ears, and the very large expressive eyes, and then sadly remove all the hair, and you have a lot of descriptions for the Texas Devil Dog or the Chupacabra.
Yep.
Here regionally, we have an animal rescue that has had to treat several cases of mange in the area, and one of them was a very large black German Shepherd dog. And sadly, when that dog lost all its hair due to mange, it looked like a Chupacabra, and there was a lot of terrible comments, sadly. So I think this animal, as well as some severe cases of mange, make a very good argument for what everybody is saying.
Yeah, and this is in 2021 when this thing got hit. So, I mean, it's entirely possible that there would be more.
Yeah. And the fact that, human encroachment, and as well as, natural pairings in the wild, so dog just leaves its house and never comes back, gets adopted by a pack of foxes, this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is considered to be the first documented case of hybridization between fox and dog.
And it's cute. It's so cute looking.
Yeah. I don't know. It looks kind of skittish.
Well, it's not docile as a dog, but it also lacks the aggressiveness expected of a wild canid when handled. So there's a chance.
But yeah, right now somebody's like,
I am calling pets.
I'm tired of stuffing parrots in tubes and illegally shipping them to the U.S.
So
I'm going to see if I can make some of these.
But I think it's adorable, and I want one.
Yeah, that's a big negative, Ghost Rider.
Well, I watch a lot of Instagram of...
If it has more fox-like tendencies, it's going to eat anything small that it thinks it can eat. A chicken, a squirrel, another dog,
if you try
a cat, kitten.
If you try to domesticate a fox or a fox hybrid, the biggest thing you have to worry about is less about it eating smaller animals because you provide it with food, and that's a quick training or learning by it. It's more stop marking everything. Stop peeing in every corner. So that's what we'd have to worry about if I got...
No, there is no worry because we're not. No.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
Getting me...
If it runs away, I'm not running after it.
Getting me a dachshund.
No.
Yep.
So, I mean, let's talk about some common crossbreeds, if you will.
Okay.
Mules, donkey and a horse, right?
Yeah.
Ligers, lions and tigers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Also, the zebra horse, that's another one that's been happening. So, yep.
Yeah, I don't know. So the entire point of putting it in there is that if this is the first documented case, I'm sure there has to be other cases, which in turn would lead. It shouldn't. Anytime somebody says that they've seen something that they can't explain, and they describe it as such, and people jump on them instantly and say, "Well, it doesn't exist. That's impossible. That's impossible." I don't think so. I think that we don't know enough. There should always be a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
So if you're a scientist, and it kind of goes back to a couple things that we think in general as a society, or I think it's a prevalent idea that people that lived in the past and what we called ancient times, we automatically think they're more stupid than we are, which is not true. They're as advanced as they could be at the time with what they had. So they're not dumb just because they do things differently, right? And the idea that you, from 1,000,000 miles away, could diagnose somebody's situation and give a hypothetical opinion on it to a person who lives in that area, thrives in that area, cultivates or whatever, is all about that particular area because they have the experience. And then you sit around like in New York City saying what everybody's seen in a small town in West Virginia was just a big bird.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I mean, yeah. With this particular dachshund or dog-fox hybrid, it's smaller, but if we take into account a lot of anecdotal stories we've heard about chupacabra and duffel dog, once you go past the American or the United States border, the creature is smaller in many stories.
I mean, if you've seen this, you'd think at first it was a skinny coyote.
Yeah. And so this kind of is more in line with that. Now, if we go, across the border back into the United States, everybody talks about these massive wolf-sized creatures. Well, like I said, regionally, we had somebody with a very large black shepherd who had mange.
Yeah.
And that thing, very glad she's getting better with the local dog rescue, but she stands up to the rescue lady's hip. She's a very big dog.
That's pretty tall.
But she was hairless for months now, looking like a demon.
Well, we don't have to worry about all that kind of stuff because if our ocean current system shuts down as early as 2025, it could definitely lead to a climate disaster.
This is terrifying.
Yeah, basically the currents in the ocean, they swirl around and they move stuff like nutrients and particles and different temperatures and all sorts of stuff, right? It's like swirling the water. It keeps it moving. And when it stops moving, it causes problems. So if you have an area that's used to getting cold water and it influences the climate around that particular area and it stops and it heats up, you have all sorts of detriments that can occur.
Yeah.
Things melt. Or on the other side of that, if things basically are moving warm water through the area and that stops, things can freeze. So it can create a little bit of an issue, right?
Yeah.
And they're basically trying to say in this particular article on space.com that it's entirely possible that our ocean current system could shut down as early as 2025, right? And we're talking about, this could be a climate disaster because the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, has been measured to be dramatically weakening in conjunction with rising ocean temperatures. And despite this, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, recently announced that climate scientists don't expect the AMOC to totally switch off within the century.
Okay.
And this is an article that you can read, but basically you've got one organization saying, we don't think it's going to happen, and then another organization saying, well, we think it might happen, but you can't tell us it's not going to happen because we don't know. So you got to pick which side of this you want to be terrified of. Because you have to read a whole article to figure out if you're going to die or not.
Well, I mean, I see a couple of bullet pointy type stuff or stuff that's in bold, like, Eastern Seaboard, and, the climate warning plays out as heat wave grips. And I'm just like, oh gosh, because if we were to take a microcosm of this whole scenario and use like the Chesapeake Bay, which we both live near, when that area remained hot and cold water didn't come in from the Atlantic Ocean, we had huge algae growths, which further polluted and killed the area.
Yeah, well, it's also entirely possible that, if you change the temperature of the water, the currents stop moving, right?
Yeah.
That you can create storms where there normally aren't storms.
Yep.
Or the rain that would normally appear in that area doesn't show up.
Yep.
Right, it's all part of climate change. And you can have things like the Mississippi River starting to dry up and then Louisiana declaring a state of emergency because parts of the Mississippi River are drying, which means that salt water goes up the Mississippi. So could this be that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing as far as this weird climate stuff and strange storms and, huge, everything is being affected by something like this?
Yeah.
If the currents slow down and things change, what does this mean for us? I don't really know. This is not one of those it's going to increase the warming of the tropics and everything's going to go back to dinosaur times, because during dinosaur times, everything was a lot hotter. And then things sort of cooled off a little bit with the whole ice age thing. And you took the temperature of the earth and made it more palatable for humans to show up later.
Yeah.
And so what was the overall effect of the dinosaurs getting wiped out by a comet and the temperature dropping and everything? We got chickens. And it kind of reminds me of an article I read a long time ago that basically said if you take like 1 million years of adaptation that happens,
yeah,
that eventually we'll all turn into crabs.
That's awful.
Yeah. So
I'm not looking forward to that at all.
Well, I don't think I'm going to live that long.
No.
But either way.
Crab people.
So, yeah, I don't really have anything to say. Then that's just one more thing let's worry about. Okay, so we've got all these weird storms and terrible things that are occurring, weird weather and fires and all sorts of crazy stuff that seem to be happening, right? Mm-hmm. And now let's just throw in, with the ocean current stops, things are going to get hot or cold, and it's going to affect everything.
Okay.
I mean, that could create new droughts. That could create new flooding. I mean, what else? What else?
I don't know.
I already told you about yesterday. It was like, hey, September 23rd, everything's going to happen. There was a bunch of weird conspiracies happening, right? Everything from the rapture to World War III, all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, people still got to pay rent because nothing really happened on the 23rd of September.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right. So let's just add that to the list. We got El Nino, right? Mm-hmm. Rains and storms, possibly. That was one of the things that was supposed to happen September 23rd was we get like one of the largest hurricanes ever. Destroy the entire eastern seaboard.
Nope.
No. Didn't happen. So, and it kind of is just something to add to the mix. But there's a video that's out about this woman in Scotland.
Yeah.
Who took some video of what she thinks is the Loch Ness Monster. Right?
Yeah.
But she didn't say anything about it.
Okay.
And this is some video, and we have everything we talk about in the podcast. There's links, and you can go to the show notes and click a link and watch it for yourself. But basically, if you look at the video, it's like, what is that? I can't really figure out what that is. Because a lot of stuff that you see where it looks like, oh, man, you can see it cruising across the water, and it's like really long and skinny. And I'm like, that looks like a wave to me that happens when you have the bathtub effect of the Loch Ness.
And I'm sitting here trying to actually watch video. All I'm seeing is like this still image. I can't find the video.
Yeah, well, you have to watch it on YouTube. But anyway, she didn't bring these images out because she thought that she was going to get made fun of.
Okay.
So she was basically, her name is Chi Kelly. Mm-hmm. And she was on a visit to the location with her family in 2018. And these could be considered some of the clearest, bestest images of Loch Ness Monster. It's really something in the water. It doesn't look like your, standard, head sticking out of the water that everybody knows to be Loch Ness, which is really just a piece of wood with a radiator hose or something on it. It was a fake, but
yeah.
She said, I was just taking pictures with my Canon camera, And when about 200 meters from shore, moving right to left at a steady speed, was this creature. It was spinning and rolling at times, and eventually it vanished back into the Loch Ness after a couple minutes. So looking back on her sighting, she indicated that she initially suspected the creature would have been, it could have been an otter or a seal, but they never seen a head and it never came up for air.
Yeah.
And since only a portion of the oddity popped out of the water, she conceded that it could not, that she couldn't accurately assess the size because, not all of it came out. So she's like, I don't know what it was, but it was definitely a creature.
Yeah.
She actually kept the photos a secret for the last 5 years because I didn't want to face public ridicule. So her feelings about the possible fallout from the pictures changed last weekend when Kelly took part in a massive search for the monster at Loch Ness. So she actually went to go look for it. And during the event, because they do this, where you can kind of join an expedition and check it out, she shared the images with seasoned Nessie hunter, right? Mm-hmm. Steve Feltham,
okay,
who was amazed at their clarity and marveled that they were the most exciting surface pictures of the suspected monster that he had ever seen. And it was absolutely genuine. And the researcher ultimately persuaded to have him let the pictures out so we could take a look.
But they honestly
was taken with the Canon camera. That's why it looks so good.
They do.
So, and there is a picture. It's included, and it's like 2 lumps.
Just does not look like Nessie to me.
Well, here's the deal. Nothing's going to look like what we want it to look like. You're never going to find a crystal clear image of Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. And you're never going to see a crystal clear image of Nessie. And if you do, you're not going to believe it. We're never going to see a perfect phantasm or ghost or spirit. We're never going to see it. And if we did, we wouldn't believe it.
Okay.
But she had them for a long time. I mean, here, she's held on to those images for like 5 years. And the thing is that when you look at it, if you look at for what you think it may be, it doesn't fit what the description of a Loch Ness monster would look like. But at the same time, if you look at it as like, what is that? Let me see if I can identify it. I have no idea what that is.
Well, she did describe that they were spinning for a moment there.
Yeah.
And I've seen
rolling and spinning.
Yeah, rolling and spinning in the water. Typically, if you have 2 logs that suddenly regain buoyancy, yeah, and rise to the surface, because I've seen it in swamps.
Yeah, she looked at it for a while,
yeah,
so
for some reason they pop up, and during that pop-up process, they end up spinning on the surface for a while.
Yeah,
and I guess it's because
could be some eels,
the gas or the air,
some big giant eels
releasing,
fornicating. Who knows? So there you go. What do you think about that? And some other news, the Chinese vlogger his lawsuit over a fake haunted house video.
Okay.
So we've talked in the past about a couple different things when it comes to, tourism and paranormal tourism, things like that. We actually talked at, remember the tour companies?
Yeah.
They were hanging around. They were moved in right next door to each other, and one was mad at the other for doing the tours.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of instances like that where you've had companies that basically close up and take people's money and then all this other crazy stuff. But there's a vlogger in China, and he was forced to issue an apology and pay restitution to a homeowner. Right, who took him to court after the man posted a video where he claimed the house was haunted.
Oh.
So this vlogger is saying this dude's house is haunted. Right. So when the internet star, identified as Lu, somehow managed to sneak into the residence of a woman named Zhao and filmed footage of what he asserted was paranormal activity, the video is apparently convincing enough that it went viral on social media in China, amassing millions of views and sparking all manner of speculation surrounding the ghostly happenings in the home. So when she found it was her house, which is not actually haunted, had been used as the setting for the viral video, she was upset and she attempted to get Lou to remove the video, right? Like, hey, you got to take this down, man.
Yeah.
And as one might imagine, based off the traffic and the paranormal production generated, right, the vlogger was unwilling to do so, and instead, he just blocked her. She's like, take this down. He's like, all right, and just blocked her, right?
Yeah.
So to her credit, Zhao didn't let this deter her, and she actually decided to go ahead and sue him for what she alleged was a violation of China's recently passed cyber violence law.
Oh.
Yeah. So despite the vlogger's instance that he was innocent, the court disagreed and sided with the homeowner, who received a settlement of around $400 as well as a written apology from the internet star.
Wait, does he actually have to take the video down?
It doesn't say.
Because that's not much.
It's China.
I know. $400. The apology is something. But
I mean, if you probably do some kind of conversion, it's probably like 400 million yen or whatever. I mean, $400 is a lot.
Yeah.
You know, in that country, it's nothing here. That's like a gallon of milk and a carton of eggs and two gallons of gasoline.
If you're going to say my house is haunted, I want more than $400. So
Well, that's what she got. Yeah. Maybe that's what he made off the video.
I
mean, everybody thinks if you make a lot of money off YouTube that you get a ton of money, right? I mean, if you monetize and you make video and you make content, you have a video go viral, that you're going to make a ton of money. But no, not necessarily.
Pulled his YouTube studio reports. They're like, well,
you get a hold of YouTube, say, hey, this is Chinese government. How much did this guy make? They already know, because if you're going to do anything over the internet in China, you have no privacy. You don't have any privacy here. We don't think.
That's so sad.
We think, oh, they won't do that. Of course they will. We're talking about our government. Our government will listen to your stuff. They've already proven they do. I mean, they don't even have to be honest about it. Yep. So this Chinese vlogger loses lawsuit over a fake haunted house video. So there you go. Don't break into somebody's house and make them go viral. They may not like it.
Yeah.
No clout for you. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So this little section of Reddit that I came across, and we create a little, basically we're going to call it, it's on Reddit, so it's real. I kind of had to put it in here because some of it's pretty compelling.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have a link to take you to Reddit if you want to look at it. And this is in the Reddit conspiracy section or subreddit.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I noticed, and one of the reasons why I put it in here, was it says it's 2023 and you can't modify the weather.
Okay.
Right. This person called him a loom, and it's an article, right? It's a subreddit post.
Yeah.
And this came from what I thought was pretty interesting, because I remember hearing something about this a long time ago. So William S. Cohen, U.S. Defense Secretary, in a DoD news briefing in April 1997, April 28th, 1997, basically said this: others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can wreak terror upon other nations. It's real, and that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts. They're basically justifying money. Doesn't do anything for you, does it?
I mean, it's interesting, but I could have sworn back then.
What is he talking about, though?
I mean, he is talking more of like at a government or military level, that there's, like, honest to goodness, eco-terrorism of some sort that pertains to the weather, like DARPA and stuff like that. But I remember learning, like, on like scientific talks and other things, of people mentioning stuff like that back in the late 90s, but it was specific to rain. Like, what happens if the Dust Bowl happens again? Here's how some Texas scientists at A&M plan to fix that. And then people actually wanting to trigger certain volcanoes in the Pacific just to go ahead and get it over with. Those were the things I remember in the late 90s. So to have people act like this is new, I'm just like...
If you say that there's weather weapons out there...
Yeah.
And that storms are being created and sent, hurricanes and all sorts of crazy weather has been engineered.
Yeah.
People say you're crazy. Mm-hmm. But you have an instance of, in 1997, somebody saying, and this is the defense secretary saying, there are things out there that are doing it.
Yeah.
So the first thing I think of is, if you've got one accusing another, they're already doing it. Right? So what would actually cause something like this? What's one of the things that could cause, anti-weather modification? It's something that when people bring it up, a lot of people just roll their eyes. HARP.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so if this is something that's been happening and it's been going on for a long time, it's funny, that when you look at it, there's like, oh, there's no real instances of this. But this particular subreddit has some links to some things where it talks about, HARP, which is high active aural research, right? Microwave arrays, the same as Tesla's experience, became the foundation for the High Frequency Active Aural Research Project, HARP, which has become a DoD project. And notably, it was used in Project Popeye over Vietnam. HARP in operation may cause a luminous cloud or light phenomenon to be visible as the plasma of superheated vapor caused by the radio tower emitters, right? So you can kind of see some of it. The observer may note extreme differentials in barometric pressure in the lifting of the troposphere and the presence of various particles that can be dropped through plane dusting. And after that happens, an earthquake will follow shortly. And it starts to give some examples of earthquakes and things that have occurred, like the Sichuan earthquake in 2006. And one that was on the Tibetan Plateau, where they noticed this. People seen this in the sky. Right? They seen some kind of aerial phenomenon, and then right after that, boom, earthquake. And this has been something that's been reported in several instances with like weather-related type things, where there's wildfires or whatever, seeing some kind of weird glow in the sky, and then all of a sudden the bad stuff happens. So what if it's for real?
Oh, I'm sure it's real. I'm sure there are such a thing as weather weapons and weather manipulation.
But if we're doing it as a country, other countries are going to do it too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the only ones that just hold on to all the technology and,
But I wouldn't just think it's being used in a negative light. Like I was saying, I could have sworn in the late 90s I heard of these scientists, specifically Texas keeps coming to mind, but they were doing research on, how to counteract should we have another dust bowl situation happening.
They look into that
and
cloud seeding and things.
And then, cloud seeding and stuff like that. Well, oddly enough, China's Great Plains are very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if they were looking after the same thing. So not necessarily a terroristic type thing, but maybe as a solution. I mean, cloud seeding over the ocean to help stimulate those currents that are dying is a great idea. I'm less inclined to find this to be malicious and more as I would love to believe, like people are like, yes, I want to believe in UFOs and UAPs. You're being hopeful. I want to believe that people are manipulating the weather for good, Yeah,
but what's good for you may be bad for somebody else. It's the whole butterfly effect when it comes to something like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to make it rain in my town.
Good.
Your town's going to dry up and blow away. Catch on fire. I think we mess with stuff we shouldn't be messing with. What do you think about that?
No.
The Earth's magnetic field can be disrupted. It can be increased or disrupted at appropriate altitudes to modify the electromagnetic field in high Compton electron generation regions.
The only argument we do,
you know what's going to happen? Pole slip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The only argument I do have to that is when they started messing with cloud seeding and redirecting tornadoes, that type of thing.
If you've got somebody who's trying to do it for good, or if they're doing the research, that's going to happen. It can be used for nefarious reasons, right? It's always the dose that makes the poison when it comes to this sort of thing. But wouldn't that be an explanation for a lot of the weird weather we've been having? First, let's blame all the humans for causing the climate issues. Mm-hmm. Let's make that popular.
If only people...
And then let's just start using this stuff and create weird weather anomalies in other places.
If only people would put in that much effort to affect change. I mean...
Well, it's always a problem with scale. Mm-hmm. So if you got somebody who has control over it, I mean, they've been talking about this stuff for a long time, right? In correlation with chemtrails and everything else. And I used to make the joke all the time. Well, the reason why we're doing that is, it puts stuff up in the atmosphere, so it comes down on us, we breathe it in or whatever, to make us less tasty for aliens. So they'll stop trying to eat us. Which goes back to the Twilight Zone, I think it's Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Mankind.
Yeah.
And people were getting on the spacecraft, the UFO, and they're like, yay! And they didn't know it. Serve Mankind was a cookbook. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Yeah, so in that sort of Reddit thread. There's all sorts of different things you can look at where it talks about like narrowband and perfect absorber, thin film, nano resistor, a resonator incorporating a dielectric overlay, and how all this stuff is basically made, or some of the stuff that you can use to create these weather modification type events and stuff like adding graphene oxide as a potential vaccine carrier, all this crazy stuff, right? Acoustics, how to use acoustics to make people sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you add the radio frequencies and you add the sound, and who knows what's going to happen. If the Egyptians were using that to move the blocks around and it's a lost or missing technology that all of a sudden, maybe it's been found. Maybe parts of it. And maybe we're finally having the understanding. Missing technology, right? And there's even been patents that have been related to HAARP. Like the creation of artificial ionization of clouds above Earth. That's a patent. It's a U.S. patent 4999637. The method and apparatus for creating an artificial electron cyclone heating region of plasma. It might be interesting, right? There's a patent for that. Ground global tomography, using modulation of the isospheric electrode jets, power beaming system to be able to beam power from one place to another. Sounds kind of like what Tesla was doing.
There's this Facebook group. It's a tag group that I use sometimes. And it says, dude, I'm really happy for you or sad for you, but I'm not reading all that.
So that's great. It's not that we have a podcast where we talk about this kind of stuff. You're just not interested. You're like, whatever, I don't care. You are exactly the problem. You are the problem here.
It's not that I'm a sheeple or whatever these people on Reddit might call me.
You just don't give a shit. What is that? What is it if you're not a sheeple? You're like, I don't care enough.
This dude, I am not even 12 paragraphs into his, questions. And it's still going. And then you
That's
look
just
at
the
this,
whole too long and didn't read thing.
This was posted like a month ago. He has 13 uplikes. So 13 people bothered to read this 16 paragraph thing.
That makes him a Reddit hero. Anytime you can get some uplinks, right? But no, I just think it's kind of funny that this was brought up in 1997, and all of a sudden there's a link list all the way through here where it basically shows things like patents and all sorts of stuff related to this.
But the problem with the patents, I click on one and it's like, no. The problem with these patent links is some of them, sure, it'll show the patent. But unless the individual who is not familiar with the patent really digs into the details, should it be published or not, they have no idea if this guy is just listing general patents with loose correlation, or if the actual application described within the patent is a good argument for this post.
Well, I think the people posting the patent don't care if you're going to argue about it. They're trying to basically go ahead and claim the technology.
The people in this thread are trying to prove an argument. So,
I'm not worried about them either.
No.
It's up to you to clarify. Right.
Yes.
I've seen that on
and
Fortune
link
Cookie.
Dumping is not a good way to win.
That's part of it. So if somebody dumps all the links, and you're supposed to check it out and make up your own mind, but you don't want to because it's too hard.
Or no,
so
I have other
therein
things
lies
to do
the rub.
with my life.
Well, if you would have read these 26 paragraphs, you would understand. So you're just one of these people like, whatever, must not be real. Because I didn't.
No,
I don't want to do the research.
Did I say anywhere 10 minutes ago that this isn't real? No.
Yes.
I did not
Basically.
say 10 minutes ago this is not real.
You expressed the fact that you just don't care about all this stuff.
I don't care about the arguments.
Operation Popeye was a cloud seeding operation.
I don't care about these loosely structured arguments to convince me.
And that's why they'll win.
I mean, I'm more interested in that article you shared about the
hot dogs.
I was going to say
that's more of a direct effect.
I was going to say the currents, but sure.
Well, that one's actually pretty scary. But
yeah.
that's one of those slow death things where you eventually.
Oh, that's like all this week. Everybody on Twitter has been talking about this new asteroid that's going to hit and how devastating it's going to be. But the earliest prediction is 2057, and there's hundreds of comments. That sounds like my grandkids' problem.
Oh, that's wrong.
I'm just like, what?
Well, that's like with some of the other predictions that were supposed to occur on the 23rd of September. People are like, so I still got rent to pay, man.
Yeah.
You know, nobody cares. They're like, a gallon of milk, $75. I don't care.
I mean, and the people who wear too much tinfoil and are like, yeah, these weather weapons, if you follow the trail, that's why a gallon of milk is $6 now.
Well, what if it's all true? That's the thing you got to look at.
Here's the problem.
If there's so many loose threads that have to be...
If it's all true, we are still middle-class Americans working in Western North Carolina who still have to pay $5 for a gallon of milk.
Yeah.
So?
There you go. It's all true.
Or it's
Speaking
all
of true, so this is some interesting things that we've noticed. And we're going to read these out, right? Mm-hmm. And you can decide for yourself if you agree with us or not. Right. And so in the past couple episodes of the podcast, we talked about shrinkflation and greedflation. Shrinkflation is all of a sudden the products that you're still paying the same price for or an elevated price, there's less. Less product, more price. You know, everything from like the little gooey stuff, what is that, cream stuff in an Oreo cookie is a lot thinner than it used to be.
Yeah.
Everything from packaging where they'll add like a new part of the packaging in there so they can take one of the things away.
And then
try to tell you it's a benefit, like, ooh, it's a handle. Or you can put your hand here and hold it better.
Less breakage of the delivered product.
Yeah. You used to get 6 little snack-sized candy bars. Now you get 5, and they're smaller. And they're saying, well, it's for your health. Then why am I paying more?
Yeah.
You're giving me less stuff. You know, but a lot of them, what they're doing is they just keep the package the same size. They just put less in it.
It's supposed to encourage you to make other options as well.
That's what they say. And we all know that's garbage. Because you bought that trash to begin with. You had the option to not buy that trash, but you bought it anyway.
Kind of like, well, the packs of cigarettes, now they're smaller, plus they're shaped different, plus they have the gruesome images on some of them in some states.
Sure.
It's supposed to convince you to make a different choice. So if fattening food or tasty snacks are smaller, of lower quality, but still have the higher price point, go eat an apple. Is what they're trying to tell you.
They're not trying to say that. These are companies that this is what they make the bread.
I've heard that argument on a couple of interviews.
Right. I know, and it's completely garbage.
Yeah.
It's absolute trash.
Because if that were the case, then they'd end their company and they'd turn into an Apple company.
Or they would try.
Yeah. So
it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they so anyway, what they're doing is, and that becomes greedflation, where they're not cutting their prices at all. As a matter of fact, they're raising their prices and turning around and you know, benefiting off of it. We have record profits in a time where everybody is broke. Inflation's super high, but the profits are even higher. Mm-hmm. So if they increased the price originally because of supply and demand and supply chain crisis and everything that was occurring, but they still kicked their prices up and they still made money, was it really a crisis to begin with?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. Most of this, I believe it's engineered. We took a trip across the country. Supply chain crisis and all these container ships were all locked up at the docks in California and none of the product could come in. And we passed, like, seriously, Santa Fe Railroad had trains miles long with 2 and 3 stacked cargo boxes, containers on them.
Yeah, I have video that is sped up, but it's actually a 3-mile long train.
Yeah, with 3 boxes. Like, and it's like, okay, come on, man. So, yeah, it's a thing. So, the Marathon refinery fire happened, so now what? Gas prices are probably going to go up?
Yeah.
But that's okay, though, because we got the president saying we're going to have more solar and natural power. Well, that's great. When's that going to happen? You're still going to pay more for gas.
Yeah.
And for okay. And like with these solar, have you ever noticed that you see like the solar plants and you see the windmills?
Yeah.
And you never really see any real infrastructure next to them? Like, okay, you got a bunch of spinning turbines up there, these big propellers whizzing around in the wind. They have them sitting on a big tower. Where is the power wire?
Yeah.
If you're making all this power, where's the wires at?
For the windmills, isn't it supposed to be buried?
That's what they say, but it's got to come out somewhere. Where is it? You think they pop these things up in the middle of nowhere because that's where the wind is. You think they're going to, how? Did they dig all this stuff? There's usually never any real sort of
Well, we passed a lot of them. And
Right, and it looked like none of them were connected to anything. And they haven't, I mean, are they really connected? I mean, I'm sure. Are these things actually working? Maybe you got to put like one or two up to generate some energy, but where's the rest of the power?
The village of Hatch is powered by massive wind and solar fields.
That's what it says.
So
This is the problem we have. You can say anything you want these days. You don't really have to prove it.
well, 35% of New Mexico's total in-state power generation is wind.
That's
So,
what they say, but is it really?
I want to believe.
I do too,
for
but at the
wind.
same time, I know that in some places where you can't really dig through a mountain necessarily to run power cables.
Which is something I was going to bring up for later, because there seems to be a little bit of unscrupulous behavior when it comes towards marketing wind and solar in areas where it wasn't traditionally marketed, like Western North Carolina. There's a big push right now where its application, I don't see the same ROI as we do out in the desert, or like.
Well, that's all part of
You
it.
know.
That's like when you put solar panels on your roof and they're like, this is going to take care of your power bill. Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, when you buy a solar panel and you look at it, and the selling point is, this is great. It is 26% efficient.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that's amazing. So this big giant solar panel creates 26% efficiency out of it. It's like, okay. Yeah. Cold medicine doesn't work. We talked about that. There's no active ingredient that actually works in there. So the FDA was taking that stuff down, or trying to take it down.
Some cold
But if you get it from, if you get it from behind the counter and it has a decongestant in it, it works. If you get it off the shelf and it says contains a decongestant, it doesn't work. There's like 46 brands.
Yeah.
So that's something that we noticed. They're starting to slip the COVID-19 stuff back in the news. Hey, guys.
Oh, they're not slipping.
Probably
It's
time
like-
to pick a vaccine. Pick your type. And then like, hey, you can go in there and get flu shot and a COVID vaccine at the same time.
Yeah.
So slipping that back in there, starting to close some things down a little bit, starting to kind of get in there. You've got some masks and school closings. Even though there's been on the news, these things, the masks, they don't work. They don't work. I mean, sure, if you sneeze in a mask, it's not going to go everywhere. But at the same time, though, your mask has to be able to stop particulate matter, and they're not rated for it. The little dust mask you get at a hospital is not going to help prevent the spread of COVID. It may prevent the spread of liquid and vapor and stuff for a certain, but it's just not effective. And the misinformation from both sides: do this, don't do this. This is great, this is not great. It's this misinformation, I think, is what's caused so much heartburn with this entire COVID thing. Food is starting to taste less like food. I ate a Reese's cup a while ago. Didn't taste at all like a Reese's cup. I used to love Reese's cups. They don't taste the same to me. They taste different. They don't taste the way that they did even 2 years ago. To the point where I'm like just not interested in having one at all. The chocolate tastes weird. Snacks and stuff that we ate doesn't taste right. And it's not like, oh, you got a cold, that's why it doesn't taste right. No, it fundamentally tastes different.
Yeah.
To the point where it's just not, I just don't want it. And I've noticed that some things that seem to have been around forever taste the same and taste better. Like those little garbage bit of honeys that I like. And the Mary Janes, the old school candies that you never really enjoyed, they taste the same because they're made the same. And they actually taste like you remember.
And I'm on a quest to find the fruit and nut chocolate bar of my childhood.
The Cadbury?
And apparently the Cadbury Dairy Milk fruit and nut bar is not what
It's not the same.
I remember.
They've changed it to either make it cheaper or just basically less cost for them to produce it. The chocolate tastes different. It tastes awful, man. It's not the same. So we've noticed that things taste different, right? And it seems like candy tastes more like some kind of weird sweetener than sugar, even though it says it's sugar, and the texture is wrong for a lot of things.
Well, yeah, that's just like, okay, when we moved back here to Western North Carolina and we bought Pepsi, and we were just like, why does this taste like nail polish remover?
Yeah.
And if you look, it's, for some reason, Pepsi on the East Coast. Yes, it uses East Coast water. The carbonation felt different, but also, again, high fructose corn syrup. And then all the way down, like 4 or 5 ingredients in, was sugar. Yeah. So if high fructose corn syrup's the number one, but, you know, you go back to the Southwest where you have Mexican Pepsi and Mexican Coke, and they taste right.
But that's just even if you got used to the high fructose corn syrup, it still does not taste the same. There's something different in the process that they're all doing these days, and things are tasting different. They don't taste the same. But, and in a time with greedflation running, like prevalent in some of these companies and corporations and stuff, I would not be surprised if they've made a change. And they're using something. Say, oh, it tastes pretty close. This will work. And then later on, we're going to find out, oh, yeah, that emulsified whatever, that's pretty bad stuff. Probably shouldn't do that. That's illegal in European nations. You can't do that. But over here, it's like there's some things that you can't even get in Europe that are totally illegal.
Well, like, okay.
Like, I think it's Mountain Dew.
Yeah. And, like, okay, remember back in February, we did an article, or we were talking about recalls and how there was some chocolate in the United States that had cadmium and lead in it.
Yes. It was delicious.
Apparently, that dominates when you try to put this old wives' tale that I heard. Like, I heard this in the early 2000s, and it was like this. Did you know famous brand chocolate is allowed to have X amount of sand in it? And you're like, wait, what? And they would explain that it was this ultra-refined, basically sand. It had no nutritional value. It couldn't be counted as flour or grain or anything. It was literally sand.
Well, it's like they were saying with Subway. Subway's bread was more like a cupcake than an actual bread because
sand was being put inside famous brand chocolate bar.
Nice.
And that's why it had its unique taste. And that brand owns many of the candies that we've tried to eat when we go buy candy now. And you're like, I don't like the way this tastes anymore.
Yeah. So if you're thinking that candy tastes weird, go try to find some of that old school candy, like the orange and black wax paper wrapped things that nobody ever eats in Halloween candy.
I can't. Those will take my teeth with them.
Yeah, they're like some kind of weird peanut butter taffy. I'm looking forward to finding those. And I do like Bit of Honey all of a sudden. And Mary Jane's more of a peanut butter flavored taffy type thing. You know, I didn't know that the Bit of Honeys are taffy. I had no idea. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like, I did some research because I'm like, I am going to buy these in bulk. You know what I mean? We have the internet. I'm going to buy 3 pounds of these things, probably for like $6. Yeah. And it's like, it's a taffy based. I'm like, taffy? That's what it is.
I see.
Because to me, taffy is like, oh, which one do you like? Do you like the light green one, the greener one, the pink one, the blue one, the banana flavored, like Laffy Taffy or whatever?
I'm looking at the things I grew up with, because you grew up with like actual candy, and I grew
up with
good
times,
stuff that was
man.
like,
we had the best M&Ms. They had that red dye stuff. They were delicious.
And I grew up where stuff was literally like maybe 2 chemicals off from just straight eating plastic. Because I'm over here looking up.
Looking up like Fun Sticks?
Wacky wax lips, and vampire teeth.
Nice.
Yeah, like literally probably what, two molecules off from actual wax.
Well, if it's made with beeswax or something, it'd probably be pretty good for you overall, but it's not. It's made with like a slack wax. It's a petroleum-based wax. It's like, that's
kosher,
delicious.
peanut-free, and gluten-free. Okay. But yeah, they don't even post the ingredients. They're like, no, you don't need to know this.
No, it's candle wax and some kind of weird flavor.
These wax lips are rated number 2 on Amazon for skateboard wax.
Nice.
What am I looking at?
Just wax, man. It's probably the same wax that's could be used in a different derivative as the
cherry flavored
toilet ring wax, where you seal your toilet bowl to the floor.
See, you had actual candy. I had
good times, man.
Like stuff that was dyed.
It almost makes you wonder if you look at like, I don't know, adults from the 60s and 70s and instances of type 2 diabetes. I bet it was a lot less during the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. I think if you looked from like 1990s to now, the amount of people that have type 2 diabetes or onset of type 2 diabetes is probably through the freaking roof because of stuff like this. It's kind of hard to say. I hear the keyboard clacking there. You're looking.
I know. I was trying to find a different candy, and I can't find it right now. So I'm not pulling up.
Yeah.
Molasses candy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Molasses. I like molasses.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find old school candies that are made with, like, when you open up or you look at the little packaging where it says listen to the ingredients, it has like 3 things.
Yeah.
Or 5 things instead of stuff I don't know what it is, like emulsified pectin. You know, other stuff I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to listen. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. We've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes, much ado about nothing other than I think the most dangerous thing you need to worry about right now is for your hot dogs. I forgot to mention with the hot dog story.
Yeah.
This has been for 7 years. So when this article came out and said something about it and nothing's changed, this has been going on for 7 years. So there's a high likelihood if you haven't ate a hot dog in the past year,
Yeah.
You still got some human DNA meat because it's been going on for 7 years.
Huh.
So enjoy your human DNA. If they could charge us more for that, they would.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, appreciate you taking time to listen to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know. Check us out on Facebook and stuff.
Okay.
Are you done?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, we're done. We're out of here. Enjoy your hot dog, human hot dog meat.
I do want to say, just,
Hey, hold on. If you think that candy tastes weird and you're listening to the podcast, let us know.
Oh, give us your example, because I know everybody eats different candy.
Like, I could care less if I eat another Reese's peanut butter cup. And that used to be my favorite. Man.
Your YouTube cake was a Reese's cake, remember? I got you a Reese's cake.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So.
I think it made me sick.
Because you ate almost all of it.
That's because it was delicious. Can't really do that anymore these days. Yeah. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.